Welcome to Bigfoot Society. If you have Bigfoot activity to report from the same areas discussed in this episode, please reach out to me directly after this episode. And if you'd like to be on the podcast to discuss a personal Bigfoot encounter, please reach out to me directly at bigfootsociety@gmail.com. Do you wish there was more Bigfoot Society to listen to every week? Well, there is now. If you become a supporting member over at Patreon, you get a special members-only episode every single week on Wednesdays, and sometimes even more episodes. Head on over to patreon.com/the Bigfoot Society. And now let's get on with the show. 3, 2, 1. All right, Bigfoot Society, we've got the privilege of talking to John today. John is a BFRO investigator from the great state of Washington. And I reached out to him after I tracked him down from seeing his name in a BFRO report. And that's a sneaky thing I do, but sometimes it works. John, thank you for being on the show tonight.
Not a problem. Thank you so much for having me, Jeremiah. And I don't mind you tracking me down. You're not the first person to do it through the BFR report website.
Absolutely. You're going to share a few really cool things that have happened to you over the years. And can't wait to hear some really cool stuff that have happened on BFRO expeditions and maybe some other things as well. We'll see. But John, I'm going to go ahead and let you take over from here. Take us back to the beginning, whatever happened first, and we'll chat along the way. So,
hey, not a problem. So I had an interest in Bigfoot from working as a young person. I saw the Mysterious Monster movie that came out. My sister took me to that. And then I put that on the shelf. And then later on in life, in my late 20s, I was working at a warehouse with a couple of guys, and they went down on an expedition in Oregon with Peter Byrne, and they rekindled the interest in Bigfoot while they were talking about it after they came back. So checked out the internet. The internet was a new thing in the late 90s. And so I found the BFRO website, and they actually offered expeditions. And I thought, man, that's really cool. So in 2006, I signed up for my first expedition. It was east of Mount Rainier. So I signed up for that one. It was in August of that year, pretty hot. And it was a great location. And so I got there a day early. The expeditions usually run Thursday through Sunday, and I got there on a Wednesday. And met some great people. Matt Moneymaker was up there, and just fell in love with all the stuff that's going on. And so one of the things that happened on that expedition, and like I mentioned to you earlier, a lot of things happen to the newbies on these expeditions. So we were out night walking one night, and it was late. It was about 1 or 2 in the morning or so. And it was hot, so we're sweaty and we're tired and we're dusty a little bit. Myself and a couple other people came back to camp, and I was camped in this little tent. It was back in the woods next to a toe of a mountain. We were right next to a mountain, and I was butt tired. So I climbed into my little tent, got into my sleeping bag. You're in your underwear there. It's hot. You're just laying there, and I'm just really tired. And I'm laying there, and I'm trying not to sweat, but you're going to do it anyway. And I've been laying there for about 20 minutes. And it's really quiet out there. It's very peaceful. And all of a sudden I hear footsteps, bipedal footsteps coming up to my tent. You know, there's little plants and bushes on the ground and everything. You hear this stomp. It's not a stomp. It's maybe, you can tell it's bipedal. You can tell it's walking slow. And I didn't look out because I don't have a screen on the tent that I can see out of or anything. And I'm laying there and I'm really tired. And I hear this thing walking up towards my tent, and I think it's one of the campers. Say, hello, who is it? And the footsteps stop. And so I'm just laying there. I'm tired, and I'm just like, oh, what is this person doing? Then all of a sudden, after 30 seconds, it starts walking even closer. You know, and it's not heavy. The ground is not shaking or anything. I'm just hearing this. And it gets up to about even with my head at the side of the tent. And I go, okay, who's out there? And it stops again. I don't hear any breathing. I don't hear it doing anything. After another 30 seconds, it starts walking up past my tent, you know. And I said, hey, who is it? And it stops about the end of my tent. I'm like, I should get up. I should unzip this thing and crawl out there and shine a flashlight on this thing and see who it is, because they're bugging the heck out of me and I don't know who it is. That's rude. And then I go, I'm sitting here in my underwear. So that's probably not cool. I don't want to scare anybody like that. So I let it go. Then I hear this thing walk off, and it just walks off down towards my friend Scott Taylor's camp. He's another BFRO investigator, great guy. We happened to be on the very first expedition together. And so that was it. It walks down towards Scott's camp. And the next day I asked him, I said, hey, did something walk around your tent? And he didn't say anything. He didn't hear anything or anything like that. But we did wake up, and we did find some footprints coming out of the woods, a swampy area at the toe of a mountain. There's a creek down there, but there's a swampy area. But it's coming out of that area, and it's walking down a dirt road, an offshoot of the main road. And we find these 9-inch footprints, and they come out of the forest. And what do you know? They walk right up to my tent. And they walk by my tent, and they go past my tent. Obviously, I didn't see what happened or who it was, but we're thinking, a little Sasquatch came out of the woods and walked up to my tent. And I keep kicking myself for not getting out there and shining a flashlight on it. But I was told, we don't want to do that. We don't want to scare them. Shame on me. But that's the first expedition I went on. And then at the end of the expedition, so it was a Saturday night, so Scott and I decided to backpack in towards the mountain. It's not too far, but you got to bushwhack in there. So we packed up, in the last Saturday night, we got in there and we slept out on the ground, and we were hoping something would happen, but nothing happened during the night. And as we were all packed up in the morning, on Sunday morning, we're about to walk out, we hear this knock, big power knock, about 75 yards away towards the mountain. And of course, now being an experienced investigator, you're going to walk towards that. You're going to go see what it is. But for some reason, Scott and I looked at each other and went, oh, that was cool. Being newbies, and we just hiked back out. We just didn't do a thing with it. And so keep kicking myself for not going through there and seeing what was making that and all that kind of stuff. But that's the very first expedition I went on. So after that experience, I was hooked. So that was the first experience. I didn't see a Sasquatch. I can't confirm it was a Sasquatch, but being positional evidence like that, you got the footprints coming out of the woods and all the sounds by my tent and everything. I'm pretty sure we had a juvenile walking around there.
Logically, that makes sense, because what else is going to walk out of the woods like that with bare feet?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that was cool. Yeah, that's the first one there. That's the cool one. One of the cool ones. But I do have another one. And it is, this is the good one. So 2 years later, 2008, I was on another BFRO expedition in the same area, not the same campsite, but in the same area. And this is a good one. So we had a bunch of people on this expedition too. We do dispersed camping, so we don't use regular campgrounds or anything like that. And I got my car up this old jinky logging road up into the area we're camping at, and I got my car up there, which is amazing because I barely get my truck up there now. But I'm camped up, and the campsite is spread out, probably about 2-3 acres in total, but it's in the woods. It's in the middle of the woods with little roads going around in the trees and everything like that. And you come into the camp off the main road, and you get up in there, and it's a flat area. And then towards the north, there's a berm that kind of runs along one side of the campground. And on the other side of the berm, there's a kind of a swampy area and stuff like that. But there's trees growing all over everything, all over the flat place and the berm and everything. You just find a spot in between everything to camp in, which is what I did. I had a tent set up, a little table and chair and stuff like that. So I've got a chair to sit on and table to cook on and all that kind of business. And so 2 of the guests, or 4 of the guests actually, there was 2 gentlemen and their 12-year-old son. So there was a father and son and their friends. And so they had the 2 kids, and they had their bikes with them. So these 12-year-olds they get there and they set up camp, and I'm on top of the berm, and they're about 50 yards away from me down the berm lower. So I'm on top of the berm. They're down lower on the berm, about 50 yards away. I can't see them because there's a bunch of trees in the way. It's not too bad, but you can't really see. So that's the camping situation. And all through these days, the kids are out riding their bikes and they're just tearing it up, and it's fun. They're out on the roads and everything. And now, as a BFRO investigator and a little more experience, the kids are great for attracting Sasquatches. They really just cut loose. They don't care. They're laughing, they're screaming, they're all that stuff. And obviously we think the Sasquatches are interested in that. They think it's pretty cool. So these kids are out riding their bikes and everything, and it's really neat. And so they're out. It's Friday night, and I'm sitting in camp. We got a fire going. I'd been out the last couple nights messing around. I was tired. So I'm sitting at camp around the fire, and my friend Dale Southwick is sitting next to me, and Dale has got first generation Russian night vision binocular. So he's got a set of binoculars that are Russian. They got night vision on it, and it's got infrared assist on it. And so I'm sitting next to Dale at the campfire. And so the boys and their fathers go out on a night walk, and they're out there, and they come back about 11 p.m. and it's dark by then. No moon is really out. You've got some starlight you can see, but it's not that great. So it's dark. The moon isn't up yet. And the kids come back, and the fathers, and they go back to their own camping area, and they've got a little picnic table set up, and they've got up on the berm, they've got a latrine up there with a tarp around it. And they have they have a pickup truck that's towing a trailer, and then they've got another car, and they're parked around in their camp area. And then they've got a tent that they sleep in and everything like that. So that's their camp. And they were down at the bottom of the berm, which the berm's about 20 feet high. It's a sloping berm. It's easy to walk up. It's not too bad, but it's got trees growing on it on the sides and on the top a little bit. It's not thick, but there are trees all over the place. And so these guys are camped over there. About 11:30, 12, I decided to go back to my camp. And I don't go through their camp, but I pass by their camp to get to mine, and it's about 50 or 60 yards away. And I'm sitting up there. And so I just go sit in my chair and get something to drink. And I've got a walkie-talkie on. I've got the earpiece in so you can't hear anything, because we were told, hey, try and be as quiet as possible and all that kind of stuff. And so actually before then, I need to go back a little bit. We're sitting around the fire, and we hear the group coming back, and they're radioing in, hey, we're coming back, and we've got a couple of barred owls following us. That's weird. Barred owls, or any owl, just doesn't follow people. And we ask them, what do you mean? And they said, there's one on one side of the road, and it hoots. And the one on the other side of the road answers back. And it's been doing that for the last half mile. These two owls have been following us for the last half mile. That immediately piques our interest, because owls don't follow people. They start coming up the road into camp, and they get close to camp. And you can hear these barred owls. You know how barred owls go. They go, hoo, hoo. No, who cooks for you? What was funny is one barred owl would call, and it would go, hoo, 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 hoo. And then you hear what we now know is samurai chatter at the end of it. So it's hoo, 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 ah, wee, 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 wee. And then the one on the other side of the road would answer, hoo, 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 ah, wee, 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 wee. So we're thinking those are the weirdest barred owls we've ever heard. That's not a normal barred owl call. And so that's kind of interesting. And they stopped calling back and forth, probably about 30 yards before the group arrived back in camp. So that's weird. That's really weird. But after they get back to camp, nothing's going on. So I decided to go back to camp. And so I'm sitting there. I'm back at camp now. And I just sit in the chair, and I'm just listening to the walkie-talkie. It's warm. And so all of a sudden, we hear over the walkie-talkie, one of the fathers going, hey, we need some help over here. And the leader, I think it was Kevin Jones at the time, he just calls him, what do you need? And he goes, hey, we got some little creatures, little Sasquatches running around our cars, and they're looking at us from behind the cars. And we're going, oh, cool. That's what we want. So Kevin's really cool. And he goes, where are you? What are you doing? Why do you need help? And he goes, we're sitting on the middle of our picnic table with a lantern. We're scared, and we're watching these things run around our cars, and they're peeking out looking at us. And we'll describe them to us. And they're about 3 feet tall. They just peek out, and they look at us. And so I'm listening to this, and I'm going, this is really cool. And they're giving us a play-by-play over the walkie-talkie down there. And so I'm sitting there listening to this. I'm going, man, this is awesome. And this went on for about a half hour or so. And Kevin just said, just sit tight. This is why you're here. This is why you come on these expeditions to experience this. And they're trying to remain calm, but they've got two 12-year-old boys that are getting freaked out, and they're freaked out. You can hear it in the voice, but they say, oh, yeah. And then there's one that's looking over the tarp for the latrine at us. It's up, and that tarp's about 7 feet tall, and this thing's looking over at them. So this thing's got to be taller than that. And so they're being watched by the little ones, and the bigger ones, which we assume are their parents or something, are watching these little ones. Take a look at these boys. These are the boys they've seen riding their bikes down the dirt roads for 3 days so far. And they're interested. So evidently the Bigfoot parents brought these little guys in to kind of watch these boys. And so that's what's going on. So they brought their little ones around their camp, and they're letting them run around and take a look at these boys. And so it went on for about a half hour. And then finally somebody said, oh, we think they're gone. That's cool. But they said, oh, no, they're back again. So there's a lull in that, but then they start again. And I'm sitting there, and I've got up out of my chair by this time. And I'm looking over towards their camp. I can't see anything. You want to stand there and you look at that direction, see if something happens. But I'm standing there, and I look down the berm to my caddy cord to my left, and I see about 30 yards away or so, I know there's trees there, but you can't see them because it's dark. And I see a set of eyes that's orangish yellow lean out as if someone's leaning out from behind a tree, and they slant a little bit, and they're orangish yellow, and they're about 5 or 6 feet off the ground. And then right below them, I see a set of green eyes lean out and look at me, and they're about 2.5, 3 feet off the ground. And they lean out and they look for about 2 seconds, and then they go back. And I can't see them anymore. I don't see the eyes anymore. And I thought, man, that's weird. Something's over there. I thought maybe it's a Sasquatch. I've been told they have different color eyes and stuff like that. And I said, that's really cool. And then about a minute later, about 10 yards closer, the same thing happens. A set of eyes, it's orangish yellow, leans out about 6 feet off the ground. And then the little green set leans out and looks at me about 3 feet off the ground. And then they look at me for about 2 seconds, and they go back. And I lose sight of them. And then I wait so I'm intrigued. I'm looking over there this time. Another 30 seconds go by, and they're 10 yards closer. And same thing happens. The orangish yellow eyes look out about 6 feet off the ground, and little green eyes look out at me about 3 feet off the ground. I said, man, that's really cool. I think they're a Sasquatch, but I can't really see any definition of the body or anything like that. I don't know. You can't tell. I can't prove it's a Sasquatch, but then again, what does that? That's cool. And I didn't see the eyes after that. They must have went back or something, and they started to go. I was thinking, I can't see them anymore. And then what do you know? About 4 minutes later, they go back and do the same thing. Now they're 10 yards back from before, and the yellow-orange eyes peek out, and the green eyes peek out down below, and they go back behind a tree, I'm assuming, and they walk back. Now, a minute later, they're 10 yards behind, and the yellow eyes peek out, and then the green eyes peek out, and then they go back down the berm the same way. I thought, man, that's really cool. They came in doing that, and they left the same way. And I thought, man, that was really weird. I'm just jazzed now. I'm excited. So I'm standing there, and about 5 minutes later, I'm standing there. And where I'm standing, there's a dirt road in there. And on the other side of the dirt road from me, it dips down a ways, and then it goes up towards the camp where the boys are. It slopes down a little bit from the road. It's not a drastic slope, but it dips down. And I'm standing there, and all of a sudden, up from the other side of that road, this big shadow comes up, this big dark shadow. And then these 2 huge red glowing eyes just appear coming up, and it looks at me. And I just stood there. My mouth is open. I go, holy crap, what is this thing? And this thing is big. And I can see its shadow. It's dark, but it's a different dark than what's out there. It's darker than the normal surroundings. This thing is dark, and it's got 2 big, huge red glowing eyes on the top of whatever it is. And it is standing there looking at me, and it's maybe 30 feet from me, maybe 30 feet. And I'm just standing. I don't know what to do. And I'm looking at this thing, and it looks at me, And it from 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, and then it turns and it walks down the road away from me, the little sand road we had. It was going to go where I was, and it saw me, and I was in its way, and it just, oh crap, and it turns and walks down the road. And I'm standing there going, what did I just see? This sucker was huge. And it walks down the road, and I call one of the guys that's down there camping further, and I go, hey, this big thing with glowing red eyes just came up on the road and looked at me, and now it's coming down to your place. You guys might want to take a look and see if you can see it. And so I don't know if they saw it or not. I think they were in their tent or something like that. But man, that was really cool. And so the next, I told everybody over the walkie-talkie, I said, hey man, you'll never believe this. What happened? And they're like, oh, that's cool. That's cool. And so the next morning, these expeditions, we always have a meeting in the morning or later in the morning, and everybody says, hey, what happened last night? And so obviously the kids and their dads were explaining what was going on. I was like, oh man, that's really cool. That's awesome. And then they asked me what happened. I said, hey, this huge thing came looking at me, and it is what it is. And these big red eyes looked at me, and then it walked down the road. And I had gone that morning before I went to the group meeting. I tried to figure out how tall it was. And there was a branch hanging down from one of the trees that I saw that the eyes were next to. And I went and measured that. And the branch was 9.5 feet off the ground. So these eyes were 9.5 feet off the ground. So that thing's probably a 10-footer. That was a big dude. And so I explained this. And, wow, man, that's really cool. And my friend Dale with the night vision binocular, he says, man, I'm going to sit with you in your campground or your campsite tonight, and we're going to see if the same thing happens, because that's really cool. So we had the boys go ride their bikes again out there and see if we can recreate the same thing that night. So last night, Saturday night. And so they did that. So they're out riding around and all that good stuff. And then they come back and they went on a night walk and stuff. And I wasn't at the campfire to hear them come in. I don't know if the barred owls were hooting at them or the supposed barred owls were hooting at them. They were really loud, and the barred owls don't do samurai chatter at the end of their call. So yeah, call it what you will. I don't think it was a barred owl. And so I'm sitting there in my campground. Dale comes up, and he's sitting next to me, and it's about the same time. It's about 11:30-ish or whatever it is. And we're sitting there, and what do you know? Down the berm about 30 yards, here come these yellowish orange eyes peeking out from behind the tree at about 6 feet. And here come the little green eyes peeking out, same direction, about 3 feet tall. And I go, yep, they're back. And he goes, is this what happened to you last night? I go, exactly. And he goes, cool, we're going to look at them through the night vision with infrared assist. We'll see if we can see them through these binoculars. Okay, cool. That's awesome. So they come again, about 30 seconds later, they're closer, about 10 yards. Here come the orangish yellow eyes peeking out from behind the tree at about 6 feet. Here come the little green ones poking out about 3 feet. He goes, okay, I got them. I can see them through the night vision, but I'm going to hit the infrared assist. Here we go. I go, cool, this is going to be great. We're going to see these things and all that kind of stuff. The second that Dale hits that infrared assist button on those night vision binoculars, everything takes off. We heard 5 creatures. These 2 creatures we were looking at, they went down the berm towards the swamp. You can hear them running, and they're heavy. Boom. We heard 2 there. We also heard 2 on the other side of us in the camp, and there was 1 north of us. And we heard 5 creatures just run, literally run, stomping as they go, shaking the ground, run out of our campsite. Just run out of our campsite. And when these creatures are around, you can tell the air is electric. You feel that feeling there, and you just know something's around there around. The second we hit that infrared assist, all these creatures took off. You could hear them. You could feel in the ground they're stomping. I mean, and they ran and they took off. And it was like that electricity that was in the air when they were around. It's like a bubble burst. It's like these things just left, and you knew they were not coming back. You knew it. And that's how we think, can't prove it, obviously, but we think the creatures can see in the infrared. And so that's why we think a lot of game cameras, they use the infrared. Those you don't really get a lot of them on game cameras. I know that we have game camera pictures of them, and some people do and all that kind of stuff. But that just told us that, hey, they might see this infrared stuff. And you can put out trail cameras all you want, but if they're using infrared, I think these things can see it and they avoid it because they don't want to be seen. And so that's the second story. That's the biggie right there. That's the cool one.
That is something else. So yeah, I got some questions. So is that the first time that people realized, hey, they can probably see infrared?
I just told them what I saw.
Yeah.
We have a blue forum on there, and I got criticized. There is no way you can see glowing red eyes because the moon wasn't out. There's no backlight. These suckers glowed. All three of them, they glowed. And no, they don't do that. And I'm like, hey, I'm just reporting what I saw. I don't know. Nobody's a Bigfoot expert. So I don't care what you've been doing. You're not a Bigfoot expert. I don't care if you've been on TV or how many expeditions you've been on. You're not an expert.
Right.
But no, that's just what it is. And we try these experiments and stuff, but we never got, at least I know of, I never had the opportunity again to try that out. But that was some interesting, hopefully that's data, that's good data. But all I can say is that's what we observed. The second that infrared assist was hit, these things knew it and they left. They took off.
To break down, maybe for listeners that are not really aware about what infrared assist. So was that a thing where you press the button and then it's shooting out infrared and they're like, oh,
yes,
someone's here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The normal night vision stuff, it just amplifies the light that's around you. It uses a little bit of infrared, but not a lot. The infrared assist is supposed to help you just light up the area. You can't see it. Your naked eye can't see it, but the night vision binoculars would amplify that light, turning into something that you can see to use as light to see what's out there. So it's an amplification. It's not an amplification of the existing light. It's adding infrared light that helps you illuminate the area. So it wasn't the night vision binoculars. Those were fine. But the second that infrared assist button was hit and it shoots all that infrared light out there, they took off. They left. So that's why we think that they might be able to see in the infrared spectrum. And that's why maybe the trail cams don't work if they use that technology.
Logically, it does make sense. Are there other things that you guys are aware of that also shoot out infrared or something that's similar? I've heard people will say, be careful of iPhones with Face ID on them. They can shoot stuff out. Or are there any thoughts about that?
No, we haven't really investigated. I haven't investigated that. I don't know anybody that has or anything like that. So no, this is just the infrared on there. I don't have any information on the rest of that stuff or anything like that.
Gotcha.
Good question.
The juveniles running around the cars, that is a fascinating part of the story. Was there any follow-up around the area to see if there were tracks around the cars or any other evidence that was able to be gathered afterwards?
Oh yes, the soil was really hard packed. It's really hard packed. It was dry. There's nothing out there. You got the pine straw that's fallen down there. You got a little bit of, bushes, low hanging vegetation on the ground. Not a lot of footprints, just a lot of scuff marks. A lot of scuff marks. We did take a footprint from the top of the berm that we think was left by the big one that was watching over the latrine. We got a footprint out of that. Didn't turn out all that great because, again, pine straws all over the place. The ground is hard as stuff. We got scuff marks. I went to the area where the big one that I saw walked down the road, and I found scuff marks, but I didn't find any footprints there. I found one later over at Dale's camp, which was down the berm from me. I found a nice big old footprint right in the middle of the duff and everything. Pretty cool. But as far as scuff marks, no. We did get a slight hand drag since it was pretty dusty there. The cars had dust on them. We did see some kind of fingerprint type things on the car where you would think a small 3-foot juvenile would put his hand by looking around the corner, on the fender or something. But we got it's basically, the dusty drag marks, no dermal ridges or anything like that. But we did get some stuff on the cars. A little bit, but nothing definitive.
It sounds like they weren't able to take any video of them as they were running around. They were probably just freaking out by that landscape.
No, Yeah, you would be too.
Oh,
The
yeah, exactly.
first thing coming. They're not expecting this to happen. There's, hey, we're just going to go out with the Bigfooters and have some fun and yuck it up, see that nothing happens. But no, this is before everybody had iPhones and cameras and all that kind of stuff. So even if they had one, I think they're a little bit too scared to drag one out anyway, because they said they're sitting in the middle of their picnic table with a lantern. They're all huddled together on the top of it. So I don't think that they would have pulled anything out to view them with that. And the two dads are being protective of their two sons. Two dads, two sons. You got to protect your young one. Everybody understands that. But no, there's not a lot of evidence gathered except for one footprint we casted. I saw it. Didn't look that great, but but it was a very cool experience. And so we've camped. Those guys that came into our group, we camped few times with them again, and they're good dudes, and we still keep track of them to this day.
I don't get a lot where people hear stuff that sounds like the Sierra sounds. So that is pretty cool to hear that. Is it a thing where you guys have ever been able to capture that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, some people haven't. I don't personally. I don't put out a lot of audio anymore because putting out audio means you got to listen to it for almost the same length of time, and I don't have the patience to do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, we heard it. It was really funny. And we're sitting around the fire. We're hearing this, who cooks for you? And we just looked at each other and go, that ain't no owl. That is, and it was loud too. That is the biggest barred owl with a frog in his throat that we've ever heard. And so another one would answer it. There's two big, loud barred owls with throat problems out there, or it's not a barred owl.
Gotcha.
You can guess what it is. We didn't see anything, but what we heard really didn't strike us as a barred. It sounded like something that was trying to act like a barred owl or sound like a barred owl, but in our opinion, it wasn't doing a very good job of it.
And this place sounds like it is pretty out in the boonies. Sounds like,
pretty much. Yeah. It's cool. On a lot of logging roads.
Yep. Absolutely. Wow. Yeah. I mean, what an experience to be involved with that. Those newbies definitely were a trial by fire for sure. But thank you for sharing that. Yeah. Feel free to continue with anything else you've experienced.
Last one. This is about, I think it's 2019 or so. And I live in Washington State. I live north of Everett, Washington. And I go, my research area and where I do my investigations is mainly the Mountain Loop Highway, which runs from Granite Falls to Darrington. It's closed during the winter, but open during the summer and spring whenever they get it open. And then also Highway 2, which is Stevens Pass. It's one of those highways that goes through the Cascades over there. It goes out of Monroe and over the Stevens Pass and comes down through some other areas in there. You can get to Wenatchee and all that kind of stuff through it. But anyway, my son, my oldest son, he's 26 now. Back in I think it was about 2019, he and I and one of my friends from work, we just wanted to go out squatching. He said, where are we going to go out squatching? We tried to go somewhere. It wasn't open. We went out Highway 2 and we're trying to go down this one road that we know has had Sasquatch activity in the past, and they've had some recordings down there and all that. And then we went up by Index. We tried to go down this one road, but it was closed. And so we're just driving around. It's dark. It's late. It's about probably 11 p.m. So we were down there, September, October 2019. And we're just went around for a place to squatch. You know what? My friend's got a bad leg. I'm getting older. I don't like running around anymore. So we're just looking for a place to go squatch. We didn't have any thermal cameras at the time. We were just going out. So we went up this one logging road off Highway 2, and we get up the road, and we get up there about 2 or 3 miles or so, and it's out in the forest, and everything's dark and stuff, and it's right by a creek. And we get up there, and the road's blocked. There's a washout. The road's been washed out. So we turn around a little bit. Right before you get to the washout, there's a big wide spot in the road, big circular spot. Evidently the road's been washed out for a while. It's where people go up, they turn around, or they camp out there. Nobody's up there. So we just thought we'd pull over and get out some chairs, and we're not doing anything. We just pull out the chairs and we're just sitting around. We're just messing around. And I had some whale sounds, some Native American flute music, and Native American drum music on my phone. And I have a Bluetooth speaker with me, and it's connected to the phone. And I thought, hey, in the past, people have played this kind of stuff, whale sounds and drum sounds and flute sounds. And they said, sometimes they bring the Sasquatches in. And I was like, hey, you mind if I play those? my son and my friend, go ahead. No problem. So we get there and we're playing these sounds. It's going good. So we play the flute sounds and then I play the drum sounds. I played each for about 20 minutes or so. And then I get to the whale sounds. And we're playing these whale sounds and we're going on and stuff. It's getting late. I want to go back home. And so I get up and we're sitting about 20 yards away from my pickup truck. We're just in the flat spot. We're out in the middle of the open. We're not in the trees or anything. And I just get up. I go over to the truck. I put the speaker on top. I'm down. I've turned off the music. And I go up there to the truck. And all of a sudden, I'm there for about 30 seconds. All of a sudden, my friend and my son run up to me and go, "We need to go." "Oh, what do you mean we need to go?" I said, "No, after you left, something has run down the road towards us. Stomp, 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 stomp. It has run down the road. You could feel it shaking. And it's now over there behind those trees. We need to go." And I'm thinking to myself, wait a second. This is why we're here. What do you mean we got to go? We're not going anywhere. And safety first. I don't care anymore. These things can squish me. I'm going to stand my ground. It doesn't matter to me. But my son and my friend were now freaked out because now something is big. It has run down the road and now it's behind a tree about 10 yards behind them. And they didn't really want to be there. And so reluctantly, I said, "Why don't we just get in the truck and sit?" Okay, fine. I open up the truck. They get in the truck and they're still freaked out. We sat there for about 30 seconds. They go, "Can we go? Can we go?" They don't want any part of this, because they know something big is over there, just ran down the road. And the chairs are still out there. And I said, "Wait a second, I'm not leaving my chairs out there." And they're like, "No, can we just go? We'll come back get them later." I go, "No, I'm taking my chairs. I'm a cheap guy. I don't want to buy new chairs." And so I go walking over there. And I'm not seeing anything. I'm not hearing anything. I'm not smelling anything. And I just go take my time. There's those tube chairs. You fold them up, put them in a tube. And so I'm just putting them away, and I open the back of the truck and I throw them in there, and they're just like, "Come on, we got to go. We got to go." And, okay, fine. And so we drive away. I'm like, "What is your problem?" I go, "No, Dad." My son's going, "Dad, it literally ran down that road. We could feel it shaking." And it came running down the road, and they thought, "Man, it's big." I said, "You guys, crud, that's why we go on these things." They go, "I know." You get more courage the farther you get away from the enemy or the danger. They're all pretty big and tough. We just picked a random spot, and we got out there and we played that music, and something happened. And then my friend, we get back, and he goes, "Hey, when we first got there, it may have been a little earlier than 11. It was slightly light out." He says, "Hey, we got out that truck, and I went over to the side of the road to take a look at, see what's out there. And this stick came flying out of the woods and landed in front of me." And I go, "Why didn't you tell me?" He goes, "I didn't think it was important." I was like, "What? Didn't think it was important?" He goes, "Yeah, I thought I saw a shadow walking back in there too." Great. That would have been nice to know. But still, you knew something was out there. That's why we came. And then you want to run away as soon as we get some action. He's like, "Yeah, I know. I'm sorry." But you see these reports. You read the reports or hear the reports. A lot of times, people driving along at night, they pull off to the side of the road to use the restroom or whatever for no apparent reason. Nothing set up. Nobody knows they're going to be there. They pull off, and all of a sudden they got a Sasquatch either looking at them or throwing stuff at them or making noise or something, just randomly. Like, how? That's just bizarre. What are the chances of that? And that's what happened to us. I always thought that was just kind of weird. Oh, yeah, you pulled off the side of the road, and a Sasquatch just happened to be there. Yeah, but then it happens to me. We just weren't planning on being there. Nobody's up there. The road's closed. No reason for anybody to be up there. We show up. We sit down. Something throws a stick at my friend. He sees something walking back there. Doesn't tell me. And then later on, something comes running down the road at us. It's like just bizarre. Just what are the chances of that? Just showing up, not planning to be there, and you get Sasquatch activity. But then you go on these expeditions or you plan to go squatching or something, or you're all set up and nothing happens. But that's my last story. That's all I got for you. And just weird stuff that's happened to me.
That last one, I don't think I've ever really heard anyone say about playing whale sounds. That is pretty cool. So are these just basic whale sounds, or?
Yeah,
Right.
stuff, you blast them out, but it's different. Okay, they might have heard flutes, they might have heard drums, but whale sounds. We played out on expeditions before and got something going on. So I never did it before. And so I did it. And what do you know? It's just something different. Maybe it's communicating with them? I don't know. I doubt it. But it's definitely different. I did scare away some campers one time by playing that. I camped down the road from them, and they were out there and stuff. And I got in my camping spot, and I started playing that weird stuff. And boy, they were out of there in about 5 minutes.
Really?
I don't know what. Sorry, but it's kind of funny.
That's really funny. I love those stories though. Like that last one, it's like stuff just sometimes happens when you put down a chair and just hang out for a while in a spot, and like, you never know.
It was bizarre, and we went back the next night. Nothing. Of course, we had planned it. We planned to be there, so nothing was going to happen. But just interesting. Just the chance that would happen. That's just great. So I give perfect credence to those people who say, yeah, I was driving all night, had a lot of coffee, and had to pull over and let some of it out. And there was something growled at me and shook my car and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I get it. But that's weird. What's Sasquatch doing? Are they waiting for an Uber by the side of the road? What are they doing out there? But
exactly.
You hear that a lot. You hear it a lot.
John, I just want to say thank you for coming on to share what you've experienced. Before we end our time, do you have any advice for listeners that are like, I might want to try this Bigfoot expedition thing out?
Go. I did it. Stuff happens to newbies all the time. Down here in Washington, I used to co-host expeditions with my friend Kirk Brandenburg. I'm getting too old. I'm not going to do this anymore. We have some great new investigators out here in Washington State. We've got Nick Bell, James Washburn, Tim Lund, Alan, Melissa Martinson, Scott Taylor. They're all running expeditions for us. They did a great job this year. They'll do a great job next year. I think there's one already out there. But just come on an expedition. Just come. You can talk Squatch. When I do my investigations, it's mainly talking to people. You just want to let them tell their story, and they just want to talk to someone who won't think they're crazy.
Exactly.
And so you don't need a experience to come on a BFRO expedition. You got to be able to camp, bring your stuff. But in Washington State, we've got the most sightings out here in the United States. So the Olympic expedition are great. The Cascades are great. We've got some great people who are running these things. And I was actually one of the co-hosts on the expedition in 2023 out with the Olympic Project. I know you had Jonathan call in and talk to you about his experiences out there. So I was out there too. That was
with the bagpipe. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
That's cool.
Yeah. That was fun stuff. there. But yeah, just come on an expedition. It doesn't have to be in Washington State. You can go on them anywhere, but we don't normally have a lot of people flying in. We get people coming in from all over the country coming in, want to go. Oh, yeah, another story. So they were out on a night walk, and they were down in one of the places late at night, and we had a thermal drone in the air, and we had the thermal drone over them. Look, the canopy is really thick where we were, but yet we saw the group, and then maybe about 30, 35, 40 yards away from them, we saw these two huge, big heat signatures, round heat signatures. The camera wasn't that great, but we could see them. They were going back and forth, side to side, looking through. It looked like they were looking through the trees, trying to look at these people, because one was walking around. One of the people was walking around, and these things were looking. They were moving back and forth in tandem, watching this thing. But there was these two huge heat signatures watching what we know to be about 6 or 7 people who will look very small compared to these heat signatures. So we think we got a couple Squatches on camera doing it. It's in the same area where the year before we had some Squatches on the thermal, but we weren't recording at the same time. So there's some crazy stuff that was happening in that area. But I've seen 2 big, huge heat signatures watching a group of people that were a lot smaller than those 2 heat signatures. So that was cool.
That is wild stuff. I love talking to you guys, and people can go to, is it bfro.net if they want to get more info about the expeditions, right?
Yeah, there's a list of expeditions on there. They're just starting. They normally come on about January, February, because Matt wants to get as many expeditions on the docket lined up as soon as possible, but personal schedules, we got to figure out when we have time to do it. Like I say, our other investigators are running them now. I don't do too much with that anymore. I do show up, but I don't run them. But yeah, just go to the BFRO website. I know some people might have issues with the BFRO. I get it. That's fine. But we're not all Matt Moneymaker. And to be honest, Matt Moneymaker's a great guy. I have no problems with that Moneymaker and with the rest of the BFRO investigators I met and that I work with. So come on out, join us, have some fun. Obviously, we can't guarantee any Sasquatch activity. We don't have them on speed dial. We can't tell them where to show up or coordinate with them. But we take you to spots where we've had a lot of activity, and we want to show you where we go to Sasquatch, to watch Sasquatch or listen or whatever we do. And there's a really good chance when you come out with the Washington BFRO that you'll either hear one or find a track or maybe see one.
Oh, absolutely. Man, it was a pleasure chatting with you, John. I'm glad we were able to get connected, and thank you for sharing some really cool things that happened to the BFRO in Washington over the years.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Jeremiah. It's nice to make your acquaintance, and thanks to everybody for listening.
Here at Bigfoot Society, our goal is to provide a platform for those that have encountered Bigfoot to share their encounter in a safe and respected environment. But we need to hear your story. If you've experienced something that you just can't explain, please send me an email at bigfootsociety@gmail.com. Then we can start the conversation. I know a lot of you have not shared your encounter at all. It's been 20 years, and it's time that you get this off your chest, and then you can get some well-deserved rest, because I know you haven't been sleeping. I understand what you're going through, and I appreciate every one of you listening.
Bigfoot Society podcast, hosted by our captain, Jeremiah Byron, where it's all Bigfoot all the time. Have you ever had the urge to do more, to be more? Now you can by joining Bigfoot Society on the Patreon. Get ad-free episodes and even member-only episodes. Take part in movie night and even live video chats. Interact behind the scenes with Jeremiah and other Patreon members like me, Slaya. The powerful podcast goes on, and you may contribute a verse in our Patreon community. Carpe diem. Seize the day, Bigfooters, and make your lives extraordinary.
Please take a minute to help out the show by subscribing on YouTube, making sure you hit the bell so you don't miss any notifications, and share the episode on YouTube with a friend. Also, if you're listening to us on a podcast, thank you so much. Make sure that you're subscribed, share the show with a friend. Really, it's all about sharing the show wherever you can. If you've had a Bigfoot encounter related to the following or know someone who has, please reach out to me at bigfootsociety@gmail.com or pass on my email. Here's the list.
These are all in Oregon, by the way. Oak Ridge, Dexter, Fall Creek, Deschutes National Forest area, Cultus Lake, Spirit Lake, Subtle Lake, McKenzie River area, Sweet Home area, the area west of Crater Lake, east of 230 West Diamond Lake Highway, and north of 62 Crater Lake Highway.
You can use email bigfootsociety@gmail.com. A special thank you to all the Bigfoot Society Patreon and YouTube channel members. It's your support that helps keep the show going, and I extremely appreciate it. If you want to join in the fun, you can join over at patreon.com/the Bigfoot Society. I'll see you there. And again, thanks for listening.